Chakkaradeep, welcome to the show, mate. Glad to be able to have a chat with you today. So, welcome.
Thank you, Daniel. Glad to be here.
Now, you're a bit like Vesa. You only need to go by one name, Chakkaradeep, and then I guess everybody knows you. So, you are a man of one name.
Yeah, I haven't been able to find anybody else with the same name. There could be different variants. Um, that's a really bad word to use right now, but there's a different variance in the name and with words and stuff. But Chakradeep has been very unique. So probably I'm very fortunate to have that name.
Indeed, it is. Now, mate, tell me, for all the viewers and listeners of this episode, tell me a little bit about your story, what it is that you're doing now, and where you're working, what you're looking after, what your role is, and I guess where you've, what's your story to getting to this point?
Yeah. So I work as a senior product manager in Office graphics team in Microsoft. So the Office graphics team manages all of the graphics related stuff in the Office application. So my team works with like anytime you open an Office and say go insert shape, that's my team. And then kind of like all the other graphics related stuff you can think about. The area that I am focused is the videos. So how can videos use can be used by customers and users for Office to you know share and communicate than just the words that they write in the document. So recently you saw us having releasing the recording studio for PowerPoint. So that's again, it's not just slides. There is a human element added to it by adding your video to the slide, so you can have it explain whenever somebody opens a PowerPoint deck and starts looking at it, right? So that's more than just reading and trying to grasp what is this user telling. Rather, if you have a video there, someone actually talking about it, then that's like really good thing, because now you would understand from that author of the deck point of view of what he or she wanted to convey to you. So that's kind of like how we're looking at how videos can change the way how we communicate. And it's very relevant today because everybody are working from home, working in different time zones, so people want to provide async updates, and sometimes emails and long page documents, they only work to a certain extent. So as long as like you can push your emotions and have a video around, that makes it really well easy to communicate. So that's my everyday job. Look at that and try to see all of the existing features plus all of the new features and strategy work that goes on video. So that's what my team and I manage every day in Office graphics team.
Yeah, right. And I guess video, especially in the consumer space, video's taken, I guess, been taken to the next level in the way that people communicate, and it's a really, it's a good way for people to connect and communicate, and that's I see it as well transforming a lot to the internal communication side of things inside of companies as well. So gone are the days where people are or CEOs or executives or those type of people are just sending out long text-based emails, or it could be some other form of text-based communication. We're now seeing a lot more communication done via video. And are you seeing, I mean, I guess that's the same as, if you're doing a presentation or, as you mentioned, inside a PowerPoint, video is becoming a lot more of a medium that people are now utilizing to communicate as well.
Yeah, I mean, it saves a lot of time, right? I mean, there's a huge difference between trying to write sentences and paragraphs that could take you like 10 minutes, but rather if you turn on your camera or just audio, for example, you might be done with it in the next few minutes. And there are a lot of technologies too, like you can translate what you're doing from voice to text if you want to. So there's a lot of easier ways now for people to communicate. And now people value time they're sitting in meetings all day, they're sitting in their computers all day, staring at the screen. So they want something really easier and effective way to communicate than just, words of text.
And I think, research and there's a lot of data around people feeling less connected. I guess now,
Yeah,
people are working all over the place and not in the office and all that, as we well know. And video does provide I guess that platform to not only communicate but feel a little bit more connected to
exactly,
the people that you're working
exactly.
with.
Yep.
Yeah.
As soon as you see someone explaining things with, the hands going here and there, having their, even smiling in the video, that sends a really good message across, right? And it sticks with
Mm.
people because that's the power of having videos.
Yeah, yeah, it's certainly an interesting space that you're managing now. You're on socials. You're very passionate about product management and what that all entails and things like that. And just before we hit the record button, you were talking about how Twitter and the socials are a very good platform to learn about this as well.
Hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about. You had a special, well, not a special use case, but a way that you use Twitter to actually not just sit there and aimlessly scroll through feeds, but actually consume and learn as well.
Yeah, Twitter is a great learning tool if you know how to use it, right? I mean, every tool has its pros and cons, and Twitter is amazing because we have all of these CEOs and founders and VCs and everybody pretty open, sharing about what they're doing and what they've learned, and how they can also come in and be a coach or a mentor, and they send out several tweets talking about like, hey, I'm looking for someone to mentor. So would you be eager to join me, or things like this? A lot of things going on, especially in the product management space. I've seen through, and I know from previous job with OneDrive and SharePoint, there's a huge community as well in Twitter
Mm.
that we, myself and even Vesa used to talk with all of the customers and interact with them, get feedback. So it's very similar to that. But with the product management community, it's great to see the different levels of the product management roles that people are adorning in their own companies and how it is very different. Because product
Mm.
management at Microsoft is different from product management at Google, and that's different from Facebook. So there's a variety of roles and responsibilities that are different. But Twitter is bringing us to this common ground where we can try to now look at all of these different tweets, talk to these different people and understand what is going on in their world. What can I learn from them? What can they learn from me? It's kind of a two-way street, right? And
Mm.
fine tuning your app, Twitter app, to kind of like, how well can you, make your feed much easier to consume and relevant, which is becoming more and more important nowadays because I don't want to just waste my time on Twitter. But if I can get a lot of learning done from Twitter, then certainly I would spend some time with the app, right? So,
Mm.
browsing through, many users have created these Twitter lists. Twitter lists are very popular, but many don't know about it. And some of them talk about like, hey, I'm following like 1,000 people. Like, how am I supposed to keep my feed? People share about, the latest game about Wordle and things like that. But I usually create lists and I put them as a tab in the app, and that kind of like enables me to move away from home and then just go focus on those lists. And those are the folks that I really value and follow, right?
Mm.
So that gives me a good way to like fine tune the app. And as you make your followers and the following very relevant to your topic, that also helps you to kind of like stay relevant within the topics that you want to follow. And the other thing I quite like is bookmarks, which is also I now start using a lot. So whenever you find some content very interesting, I have a bookmark like folders like learn, read, watch, explore, and things like that. So I kind of like bucketize these tweets into like different categories, so I can come back later and visit them. And if I have to learn, like that means that I can always go back and there is something for me to learn from those tweets, right? And read is something that I can go and read later, and then I kind of remove them then and there. And there's
Mm.
also like great content with super followers that does cost extra, but I follow Shreyash Doshi, who's a great product leader, and he's sharing amazing things on Twitter. And the only super follow I do is Shreyash Doshi. So he's great. So that's also again makes the feed very relevant
Yeah.
and engaging too, because now Shreyash doesn't need to engage with the millions of users in the Twitter, but he can focus on those I think he has now 1,000 users now super following him. So those
Yeah.
1,000 users, and his engagement is really nice to get that replies and further clarification. So Twitter suddenly turned into this very useful tool, especially for me that I'm learning a lot about product management and seeing how people do product management in their day-to-day job.
And you've started up a little community called Elevate inside of Twitter as well. So, what's the intention with that?
Yeah, I think Twitter is testing out communities. So that's a
Hmm.
new feature they have. It's not widely rolled out, but if you had requested access to it, like I requested access probably a few months ago, like 3 months, I think, and I got an email saying that, hey, would you like to try out the new feature? You have access now. And that's the kind of what Twitter is trying to do, at least I think, is like for folks that are not eager to discuss things in the public, which sometimes people do have some things
Yeah.
to not discuss in public, right? So you could go to this private community and then discuss within that private community. But all of the features that you have in Twitter, like the Twitter character limit, what you can do with a tweet, everything is still the same. So it's kind of like you have your tweet and then all the replies do come up as the replies for that particular community post. Um,
Yeah.
and you know, product management community is a very passionate community, so I thought, let me try this out. I don't know whether Twitter is going to continue or not because they're taking their good time to kind of like learn from what is going on and trying to figure out how users are, because obviously there is a slight problem with the communities, because if users are active in the community, that activity is not public,
Public.
right?
Yeah. Right.
And people, whether it is good or bad, do value their activity and engagement in the public Twitter profile. So I think it's a good experiment for Twitter to understand, like, do people need like these private communities, like this Facebook community is there, and can we do better than Facebook communities? Maybe that's what Twitter is trying to do. But yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
if you're into product management and want to discuss something with relevant folks, I do have the Elevate community, but you have to go to my profile to find the link, which is pinned in my profile.
Yep.
Unfortunately, you can't search communities yet in Twitter. Like it's really closed right now.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll link to all your socials and everything like that in the show notes as well. We might have to also, after this episode, look at maybe running a Twitter space or something like that as well around product management. That would be quite interesting too.
Yeah, there are actually a lot of folks doing that. So if you
Hmm.
follow some folks, and they do have a lot of product management topics coming up in Twitter Spaces, and if you go to Clubhouse, there is tons of rooms with product management topic, but that gets really hard to follow as well because there's like
Yeah, it
so
does.
many thousands of rooms. But Twitter still the usage is less than Clubhouse, but I think it's very nichely oriented with the right folks right now.
Hmm. Yeah, that's right. Now, mate, you've been you've been at Microsoft for a little while now, and you've obviously come across some in your career at the moment, come across and work with a lot of great product leaders in your time there. So, a question around product leadership: what do you think, in your opinion, makes a really good product leader?
Yeah, that's a great question. Many people have asked me this question lately, and I myself have asked with other leaders as well. And everybody's going to give you a different answer. There could be a fundamental core principles that align, but everybody's viewpoint would be, I think, if you ask a product manager in Google and Microsoft, and everybody's going to come up with different answers. But to me, um, I feel from my experience at Microsoft and seeing working with great leaders, there are actually three qualities I would say that make a great product leader. And this is a journey, right? I mean, you don't just become a product leader like one morning. It's a journey that you have to incorporate through your product management career. Keep practicing those skills and showcase as you grow your career. So by the time you become a leader, you're kind of like, not worrying about the role, like, oh my God, what am I going to do as a leader? But you bring those skills and you bring those characteristics as you grow up, and then have your team get that benefit as well. So the three things that I think that makes a great product leader is being customer obsessed, being failure tolerant, and being product led. So, if you want to go a little bit deeper into like customer obsessed, means I like this quote from Steve Jobs, actually in a YouTube video, right? Um, Steve Jobs talks about how it is important to start with the customer first, customer experience first, and not with the technology. And this happens a lot. Um, we try to see, okay, we have this technology. What can we do with this technology? And let's build something really cool with this technology, right? That isn't the case anymore because people value time. People are going to pay for your product. So we really have to figure out what is the customer experience? What is the problem that we are trying to solve? Does it have its need in the market right now, or do we think this is going to completely disrupt the market too? Right, like how iPhone disrupted the entire market, right? So being very focused on that customer, be it in your domain, which is what a leader would be focused on. That is very important, and having that having that come down to everybody in the team is a great skill for a leader, right? As a leader, how are you going to encourage your team to be customer obsessed? Like, what are the different opportunities you have for your team to talk to customers, to meet customers, to with your user design and research? How do you use that team to get the insights that you want to get? So a lot of things are there around being customer obsessed. And many leaders are really good in that, understanding the customers in the way that you can, build great things in the product. And the second one is being failure tolerant, right? Being customer obsessed, you're going to get a ton of insights about what are the things that you want to build, what are the things customer don't like. Maybe they like it, you don't know, but you need to be able to give that environment and build a culture where people are able to try and fail and succeed, right? And that is what being failure tolerant is. Like, just because a team, you give them a task and they're building this awesome, whether it be a feature into a product or a new vertical in the product, and they fail, doesn't mean that the people didn't do their job. It could just be that whatever we thought that could work is probably not working out. And that's why people do a lot of experimentation. People try to do a lot of research studies to figure out whether this is a thing that they want to pursue. So there's a lot of ways that a lot of levels where people fail, right? There are teams that fail at the beginning. So that's great. So you took a topic or you took a product, you worked with your research team, you built prototypes and something called pretotypes, which is what I like it. It's a book called The Right It. And that book talks about how you can take your idea and go through different ways to validate it, even without writing a single code. So that's very important to me for a product manager. Is product managers don't write code. Like, I don't write code. So I'm not going to sit and write and build a product and say, oh, okay, so I'm going to test this out, right? If I really want to write code, then I have to get funding so I can get engineers working their time on that code. And that becomes really hard if you know that, or if you don't know whether this thing is going to succeed. So allowing the team and building a culture such that the leadership is giving the opportunities for people to fail early and then figure out and pivot or change their ways. But able to build great products, that's being failure tolerant. So not taking failure as like, oh, you failed 3 times, I'm not going to promote you next year. Right? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. You failed.
Yeah.
That's great. Like you learned something. So what is it that you learned, right? And how are you going to apply it to the next step? Like that's very important. And how is it going to help others for other projects that are going on and other products that are being built in the company? So that is being failure tolerant. And being product led is also about very similar to customer obsessed, but really looking at once your product goes in market, that when you have to be very vigilant about how your product is doing, how customers are using your product, what is going good, what is going bad, and what signals does the product is sending, or what feedback you're getting from customers to understand how you can tailor the next thing you want to build, or the next fixes that you want to do, or features that you want to add. Sales is going to come up with lots and lots of issues and lots of great things too. But how do you manage that and bring your sales team along the way? And then support team is going to come and say, gosh, our support tickets are increasing every day. Or they could come and say, great job, product team. We have very small number of support tickets coming in every day. So how those things change, and that to me kind of like being vigilant about the product and giving it back to your team, and then again going back into this learn, build, and measure loop. So you take the things that you're learning and driving the product.
Look, there's a lot to unpack there, and you spoke before about being very customer driven and things like that, and then and also working at Microsoft as well, and that whole ecosystem. There's certainly some very cool technology and some really amazing things that are happening from a technology side of things, but it doesn't really mean that we should be building this particular thing using that technology just because it's cool. If it's not serving a purpose, if there's not a need for it, or the outcomes not there from the need for that outcome isn't there. You also talk a lot about, and this is fairly common as well, features versus outcomes. So a lot of product organizations are very feature driven as opposed to being outcome driven. So, that concept of, yes, this is a really cool feature. We're going to use the latest piece of technology and this is going to be a killer feature, but it's not really delivering an outcome. So shifting focus from, shipping features, that type of thinking, to a more outcome-driven thinking approach. How important do you think that is?
Yeah, that is very important. And that goes back to the being customer obsessed, right? As soon as you talk about customers, then you change the way how you see things. There is a very common example. People are not searching for quarter-inch drills. They really want to do is drill a hole, right? So your outcome is, I want to drill a hole. Your outcome is, no, I have to sell quarter-inch drills. That's not the outcome, right? So similarly, like, in your product, your customers want to do something, and that's their outcome. If you do those things, customers are going to be happy. They're going to stay with your product. They're going to be using your product, and they're going to give you feedback, right? Understanding that and driving your team to align the roadmap or align the deliverable plan, whatever the team is working on, right? To really be based on what is it that we are going to be doing that this customer is able to complete their task, right? So that's about outcomes. And features are like, they usually tend to be more around a specific feature, like specific UX related thing, or a specific topic. Like, for example, you could say, well, users need to check out. Then I'm going to build a feature called cart, and I'm going to put a button there, cart, and you click on it, and you're going to see a list of products. But then, great, but what does the customer want to see in that cart? Maybe they want to see more information. Maybe they want to see there is the price has changed by the time they went to that product when they order. They want to see, like, hey, do you want to reorder this, or there's a price change in this product, want to go back and change something, or there's another thing that you can add to it as well for this product as an add-on kind of thing, right? There's a lot of expectations you have from a customer, just even within that, the cart feature. So understanding that, and then figuring out what is the outcome. How successfully am I going to take the user to the cart and complete the checkout, right? That is kind of like the Uber outcome. And then within these, you would drive, okay, here is what the customer expectations are in the cart, and here is what the customer expectations for the checkout, right? For example, a really good thing we do is performance, right? All the time. If you look at the old days, even within, SharePoint is a great example, right? You go to a SharePoint intranet portal and then you load the page. It takes few seconds to load. Even building for a developer, building a web part in SharePoint took I could go make a coffee, come back, and then, even then the web part and everything would still be compiling. What a waste of time, right? And when we started rebuilding all the SharePoint framework and redesigning the SharePoint product, our main aim was to really focus on the customer. What does the customer want? Well, the customer want speed. They don't want to wait, whether that is loading a page from a user perspective or from a developer's perspective, building things and deploying things to SharePoint. So we really focused and nailed that. And if you notice today, web parts don't take few minutes to as long as you put everything in, it's super quick to get deployed, right?
So in that type of scenario, so you're starting, I guess you're reverse engineering it a little bit. So you're starting from what the end result
exactly
and what the outcome is wanting to be, and then working out the features. Well, it could be a number of features that then lead to delivering that outcome, right?
Exactly. And that's where Steve Jobs' quote resonates really well, right? You start from the customer experience and then you go to technology, because technology can always be there and you can always write and build new things. But if that is not serving the right customer experience, it doesn't matter how good the technology is. It's just not going to be super helpful, right? And useful too.
And then you also mentioned before about being product led, and I guess that leads into the topic of the importance of product metrics and things like that. So being able to choose the right type of metrics and what to look at, it becomes really, really important, and that then also leads to either deprecation of things or different directions or that type of stuff. So how do you go about understanding or choosing the right metrics?
Yeah. The first step to choosing the right metric is really understanding what success means to you, right? If this product is successful, then customers would be doing X, Y, Z, right? That's a really good way to start. If there is really nothing on the table, right? Of course, there are some metrics like usage, meaning number of monthly users, daily active users. Those are really great to some extent, but they don't really tell the story of how your product is doing in the market or doing within the customer base that you have. And that's where I think the metrics and success metrics come through. And I wrote about this a long time back as well. A really good example, in file, in OneDrive and other, especially in OneDrive. Let's say you're sharing a file, and then that share action completes successfully. Maybe we would be happy. Hey, number of a million users shared a file in the product. Great. That doesn't tell anything. Why is the share feature there? Well, share feature is here to enable collaboration, to enable successful sharing of files. So others, the user is number one, the user that is sharing the file is able to successfully see that his or her file is shared. And number two, the receiver on the other end is successfully getting the file and reading the file and getting the benefit of the share feature. That is the outcome, right?
Yeah.
Now your metric suddenly changes. Your metric is not just about, the file was shared. It's also about the file was viewed, right? How do you push your product to be even better, to have users that are receiving the file to successfully read the file, right? And this is a great example as well. Like if you notice, if you share a file with someone, you get an email that, hey, Chakkaradeep has shared a file with Daniel. Like, awesome. And then it's like in the evening and you go home and maybe you forget you go on a vacation and you forget, and then you come back after 2 days and then there's an email saying, hey, here's a reminder that Chakradeep shared a file with you, right? Because that's the outcome we want, right? We want to have the user not forget that someone had shared a file. And now when you open the file, that's when the loop closes, right? Which is a great way to measure success. But most of the time you see people would default to just measuring the number of shares. Oh, we have millions of shares. Well, what happens? So what do we do with this millions of shares? Do we celebrate success? I don't know. It's just a vanity metric. So that's how you should think about metrics, about like how success is defined and how you bring all these different customer actions and outcomes and then build that metric to have that. Now you can say my usage is aggregation of number of successful shares and number of successful opens, for example. So that will give you the usage.
Yeah, and I guess that goes also kind of a parallel to starting with outcomes. I guess if you start with what success means and then work backwards, and then that will help you, I guess, build the understand what metrics are really important. If you start by, I mean, everybody's version of success is going to be different.
Yeah, and this is kind of like this example also is very important for videos as well, right? In my work every day, we not only enable creators to create the video, but we also need to have the right amount of experiences available for the viewers that are getting the video and opening up the video and playing the video, and maybe they want to interact within the video. So all of those combined kind of like comes into a metric, right? And that also is the outcome that we define, the being customer obsessed and talking about what really the customer wants from a creator point of view and from a viewer and consumer point of view for the video.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So it's both. I guess it might be a little bit of a mind shift for a lot of people, starting from the end result or starting from the outcome, and then starting at what success looks like. But I think that would lead to better outcomes, both from when we're talking features versus outcomes, but also then from a planning and a roadmap and a strategy point of view by starting with what success looks like and then being able to build the metrics around that and consume that. Very, very interesting. Now, I'm assuming you're like everybody else, and your team is well, fairly remote. It might not be remote in location, but you're either working from home or hybrid type of stuff. So how has that been a challenge leading a product team? Has that been a challenge being remote?
Well, absolutely, right? I mean, I think many of us, it's been 2 years now, but really, I think things have improved in the last year, right? And when we all went into this mode of working remotely in 2020, nobody knew what to do. Everybody were like scrambling to figure out ways to how can we work with developers, how can we work with the team, the leadership, like how does our meetings work? Am I supposed to be online all day? So certainly there has been a lot of improvement, I would say, for the past year compared to like 2020. And it's really about starts with the leadership and the culture you have, right? And luckily, like for me, being fortunate working at Microsoft, Microsoft really focuses on making sure that everybody gets their time to spend with their family and also do the job as well as having that work-life balance, right? Really about that. And we have found like having writing things down, like taking time to writing things down, and also having async video updates. Like for my team in India, we have done several updates through video because it's really hard to have every day jump on Indian time zone, especially when you're in US, right? There's like 13 hours difference. So when it's night for me here in US, then it's morning in India. So we are forced to find new ways to communicate. And, being an office user, we use a lot of collaboration, especially with comments and whatnot. We use a lot of videos to communicate as well. Whenever I send a deck, now I can add my video to it, which is very, very handy and very useful.
Well, yeah, you kind of have to, don't you?
Exactly.
That's what.
Yeah.
Being the product manager there, you have to use your own tools, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to use your own tools. Even though you're not the user, you still got to use your tools and see how well it works, how well it doesn't work. So that's like awesome. And really, like, also the other great thing that I have seen is like how good the team is flexible enough to accommodate certain meetings and things that you want to do. Like with engineers, especially, before this working from home, we used to just go to their office, sit with them, talk with them, and get things done. Like we use the whiteboard and get things done. But nowadays, like we can't use whiteboard. So I try to make sure that I speak to my engineering manager and then figure out how his team is doing, rather than just going to every engineer and saying, hey, like, can we talk about this? Can we talk about this? But rather like see how I can balance that work through my engineering manager, because he knows his team, how he's distributed the work and who can I talk to, so I can be efficient enough when I go talk to, right? And similarly, having synchronous chat in Teams, which is very, very useful. People tend to now reply to chats rather than meetings, right? Because they're in some other meeting, so they need to like work parallelly in that. So Teams chat has been really efficient, and of course that could go with like Slack or any other chatting and communication tool people are working with. And people do have create groups and teams. So I create groups in Teams. That's my personal hack. Um, I don't like much channels. Channels are very noisy. Channels are too much work. That's like, to me, another thing that I need to manage. Rather, I create a group for my team, like my EMs and my engineers, or feature by feature, or things I work with, and I see more engagement coming through that.
So when you say groups, you saying
Group
a group chat, or
yes.
are you using tags in Teams or
no group
like
chat in Teams? Just right, like start a chat with like 4 or 5 folks within your team. I've seen more good results doing that chat rather than in a channel, because channel is like too heavy, too noisy, and they can't really differentiate. It goes into your activity. It's not like in the chat, so people tend to like lose focus, right? So creating a group chat in Teams, I found more success there. And of course, there is like we have successfully done few design sprints with remote. We have used tools like Mural and Microsoft Whiteboard and Figma Design, which I really like the Figma design of all the three, to have a virtual design sprint. But we do keep in, we are mindful of the time people spend in design sprint. We spend at least 2 hours in a day for a week. And then we do a lot of async updates. So we give designers, we give, other activities that needs to happen, because sometimes spending a lot of time, like an ideal design sprint, when you're in person, works like you are spending the whole day with the team in a remote place, right? Together in person. Whereas now it's like really hard and people have to manage multiple things. So we still use the same format. Like Google has a really good design sprint format. We use the same, but we are time boxing to certain things.
So you're talking about the Google 5-day design sprint?
Yeah, there's also there's also a 3-day design sprint framework, which we kind of like do now, because we have a policy for us, like no meeting Fridays. So use Fridays for your own work, any research, and any other thing that you want to do on your own. So we kind of do Monday to Wednesday a design sprint, And then Thursday we do user testing. So whatever we build and whatever we create, we take it to a testing on Thursday. So that's been very successful, really. And making a 3-day sprint is really good because you're moving really fast, and you try to scope down to the really important things that you want to focus, rather than going broader and really like, what am I supposed to do now? And I feel that is very important when you're working remote, because the more success you get, the more happier you are working remote. Otherwise, I have found it like, what am I working at? Nothing is working here. Like everything is like taking time. But try to focus to certain, deliverables and outcomes, and that will yield you to enjoy working from home. At least that's what I've learned.
Yeah, and it goes back to your point at the start of the conversation around being okay with failing, and I think those really quick iterative design sprints, it makes it, if you fail, you fail, but you learn from it. But at least you're doing, you're rapidly doing that process over and over again.
Exactly. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Now, being a PM, obviously your calendar would be extremely busy. Can you share some tips or tricks, or I think you posted somewhere, I think it was on Twitter that I was reading about some key things that you do that you could share with others that help you manage your calendar.
Yeah. We cannot talk about managing calendar without managing emails. So
true.
The things I do, and I've been doing this for quite a long time, is it's a very simple management hack. And I think Scott Hanselman also has talked about this in several places, in his podcasts and his videos. I think recently even in TikTok videos, he's very big in TikTok, which is like amazing. Things like, I really value the emails coming to my inbox. So there's a lot of rules that takes email outside of inbox. So that's my first thing I make sure I'm doing. If I'm getting any other email that is not supposed to be in inbox, I immediately create a rule and then take it out. So my inbox is very precious, and that would mean it's about my team, about the specific people, about the leadership areas, or some PM areas and stuff that really matters to me that will affect my everyday work. That goes into inbox, and then I have kind of like inbox CC. So anybody CCs me, then I put them in. It goes into a different folder, because I don't know what they expect if they put me in CC, right? Maybe they just want me to follow along, but there isn't any action required from me. And a good thing is, if you're using Outlook, even if you put somebody in the CC line and you go into your email and say, Chakkaradeep, I want you to do this, Outlook would move that person from CC to the to line, right? Because that's how many in Microsoft have worked. It's almost kind of built for the Microsoft people. But that's the outcome, right? Because I want to know if somebody is mentioning me, then it's very important. I may have to do something for them, whether that takes today or tomorrow or a week, but I do have to keep track of that. And then I have kind of inbox DL, distribution list. Every other thing goes into that DL. So right now there could be 500 emails, but I really don't care. It could be different updates and news and whatnot, but I can take my own damn time to go look at it. No hurry, nothing. So the number of emails I have in my inbox is really, really less. In fact, right now I think I only have 2 in my inbox to close my day today, right? So that's a really good way, and you have to create a lot of rules and stuff like that. But once you start creating them, it becomes really easy. And similarly, I have several other folders for very specific deals and other work that I manage. So those things go into the deal, and I take my time to go and see and read the emails, that rather than the email forcing me to read it right now, right? So I've been doing this for years and years, and it's been working great. I haven't had any issues. All the conversations about even if there are customer connections, they go into a separate folder. And I also use the snooze feature and flag feature a lot in Outlook, so that if I get something in email and I see that it's something that I need to do, I immediately snooze it, or I create a flag and set a due date if it's like longer for me to go look at. So that's how kind of like my to-do works. I don't create or use to-do apps. My mail system is kind of like one of the to-do systems, because it allows me to kind of like make sure there's a lot of emails, but some emails are important, like I need to do them today. Some emails that I can do tomorrow. Some emails I can even look at them 2 days later. So the flag and snooze kind of like helps me. Snooze can manage today and tomorrow, whereas flag can manage kind of like a reminder set forth for any specific day.
That's it's very interesting you say that, because we were talking about features versus outcomes before, and just using technology because it's cool and that type of thing. And you look at things like new apps, well, not that new now, but To Do and Planner and other task management tools, where what you've just explained is Outlook, is email, and it's been around forever, but it serves and it gets you to the outcome that you want, even by just using Outlook and not just using To Do or Planner just because they're there and they're cool and they're new. Interesting.
Exactly. And when it comes to calendar, there are only very few things I do, which is, so there is this, I block times. I think there's a feature in Cortana that you can do it. I've set it up, and then it blocks my study time, my focus time, and many other things that you can ask it to do, and then it'll go and do it. And that's how it sets up my calendar. And then nobody can book in my focus time. And I have a day where there is no focus time. So usually that is on Thursdays, or I think it's Wednesday right now. I changed it. So Wednesday is like my calendar is fully open. People can make sure they can use my whole 9 to 5 or, whatever the working schedule is. But in other days, I do have time slots set for my own work that I need to do. Because I should be the one deciding whether I need focus time or not others, right? That is very important. And I also kind of like make sure I have, because I work with India and other geography and time zones, I also have other times where, like when I sleep, when I'm going for my gym and martial arts, kind of like put them in the calendar and block them. So if folks in India want to book my time, they know exactly like whether I'm in or out, right? And Vesa does this a lot. If I look at Vesa's calendar, like he's like family time, sleep time, and then like his whole thing is like booked, because nobody understands like what's the time in Finland right now, what's the time in India right now, or for India, like what's the time in US right now, like how does this work? So instead of time zone, like if you make your calendar great, like it helps so good for others to come in and see what times are available for you to get together and talk about and go with the meeting.
I think it's I'm not sure about how you, or if there's a policy or whatever in your at Microsoft, but what I find really helpful as well is even when you are blocking those times out or time blocking in your calendar, is to have that available for other people to see. So if it is family time and you have blocked out a couple of hours for family time, people know that.
Exactly.
And they can see that what that time is actually blocked for, which I think is both helpful for you, the individual, but also for the rest of the organization as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if have a meeting that shouldn't be public, like you can easily make it private, right?
Private, yeah.
But having the default as public is, at least especially now, it helps a lot for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, as we wrap things up there, look, we could probably talk about this for a very long time, and we'll definitely catch up for another episode about this. But you're sharing, as we mentioned earlier, you're sharing a lot of content, and you're learning a lot from socials and that type of thing. And I follow you and your content and your tweets as well on Twitter. So for everybody watching, listening, I highly recommend you follow Chakkaradeep on Twitter. But where's the best place for everybody to find you? Is it Twitter, or are you active on other platforms?
It's Twitter now. So I kind of like changed my strategy to use Twitter as a way to connect with people and share my, all the things that my everyday plus my work, my personal. There's also, I'm trying to figure out, like, I'm trying out two newsletters, kind of like one in Substack and one in Twitter, to see how I can be better at sharing more content for people. But right now, I'm not sure. But if you go to my Twitter profile, you're going to see all of that information as well. And there'll be a website link in my Twitter profile, which is chakkaradeep.card.co, which is kind of a new product. It's a way to build single page websites, and it's really good. So that's where you can find some information about me. And then Twitter is where I'm starting to write more threads and create content in Twitter. That's so much easier than blogs. Like, blog seems to be like this old ways of sharing information. And then tweet seems to be kind of like, even though Twitter has been forever, suddenly like Twitter is becoming a great medium to share content in a more precise and concise way, which is what I feel like is very effective.
Yeah, very good. And you are fairly easy to find, as we said. You are the man with one name.
Yeah,
You're the only one in the world. Bit like Vesa, you're just known as Chakkaradeep, and we'll be right to be able to find you. So, mate, I really appreciate you taking the time to have the chat. It was a great discussion, and we might even hit up Twitter Spaces or Clubhouse or something as well for a follow up. So, thanks again, and appreciate it.
Thanks, Daniel. Thank you very much.